So today we're going to talk about something really powerful, which is becoming a brand ambassador. And I'll kind of break that down. Number 7, if you really want to add value to a company, one of the most important things that you could do truly is to position yourself as a brand ambassador for the organization. Now, before I give you what the definition of a real brand ambassador is, one of the things that I want to share with you guys that I think is really, really critical is that especially in today's social media space, which means everything is transparent. I mean, you can find, if you're upset with somebody, 9 out of 10, you'll find somebody's comments now online because it's completely transparent. It's not like it was before where you just hold a grudge. You tell all 10 of your friends you're not happy with this company. Now you can put a comment and before you know it, it snowballs, right? And people don't want to work with you based on that experience that some random stranger says they had with you. And so that's the reason why it's so important for us to be protective. And it's to the point now that many big organizations are investing in actually hiring this very role called a brand ambassador. And some of these people have a lot to do with influencers that are in the internet and that have professional levels of experience in certain topics or business types. And so these companies will hire them to actually create the presence of success and to embody basically what that company represents in order to protect their name. And the way they do that is to influence people around them, sometimes to counter off balance the negative, right? And so, for example, I'll give you a big picture. So imagine if you're running a gym and you want a really successful brand. Well, if you have the money, you can invest in somebody like who? Like The Rock, right? To be that brand ambassador for you. So when he's in the gym, he's talking about you. When he's in the workouts, he's talking about the things he learned there. So the whole goal is some of these companies have taken brand ambassadors to the next level by doing that and finding influencers that have blogs with tens of thousands of followers. And they bring those people into their organization as a brand ambassador to do what? To influence those in their sphere of influence, to let them know that the organization is a solid organization to work with. And so again, it's become to that level where there's literally a role for some of these individuals to actually take upon. So let me give you the definition of what a brand ambassador is, and then let's talk about how important it is and how we, each and every one of us, are true brand ambassadors. So what is a brand ambassador? So let me read to you the definition of a brand ambassador, and I want you to position that in your mind and think about yourself as if this is the person that's responsible for this. A brand ambassador is a person who is hired by an organization or company to represent a brand in a positive light. Notice how it's not a negative light. And by doing so, help to increase the brand awareness, credibility, and sales. The brand ambassador is meant to embody the corporate identity in appearance, demeanor, values, and ethics. So in the end, guys, we should all aim to be a brand ambassador. Now, one point that I want to make that I think is critical as we talk today about this particular topic about being a brand ambassador is at first when I was looking at the job descriptions and everything, because I was curious to see why is this such a popular trending job, what I realized is that there were actually people that were talking bad about organizations within some of these comments, which I found completely interesting. And there was one article that I read that specifically said, why waste your money in a brand ambassador when in the end, the ambassador is your employees that are in the office. It begins with your staff. That is the brand ambassador. So if you don't have a brand ambassador within the organization, why go out of the organization to try to bring somebody in? Because even if that person brings somebody in, if your staff isn't prepared, your staff will destroy the very brand you try to create in the first place. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. And I really believe that's the most important thing for us to consider here, guys, is that in the end, it doesn't matter how big we grow. And if we get to the point that we have the equivalent of The Rock, if you will, working and being the ambassador of our brand, if we ourselves don't see ourselves as a brand ambassador and don't take it seriously, then we kill the very efforts of companies trying to actually invest in to help us to grow to that next level. And that's really why I think it's imperative that we look at this meaning, and I'm going to read it again, and think in the back of your mind, is this me? Am I representing this correctly? So now that I say this, here it is. A brand ambassador, you, is a person, you, who is hired by the organization or company to represent a brand in a positive light. And by doing so, help to increase the brand's awareness, credibility, and sales. The brand ambassador, you, is meant to embody the corporate identity in appearance, demeanor, values, and ethics. You are the brand ambassador. So it's not until we personalize these types of presentations that we can't implement them and we can't become what we're learning. And that's really the most important thing. There's a proverb that is really kind of gross, but it speaks truth. And then it says, as a dog returns to his vomit, so a fool returns to his folly. And so what I want you to understand before we go into the next of these steps is that it's easy for us to not listen and not let it drop into our hearts and continuously go back, like a dog goes back to his puke, which by the way is disgusting. And we keep repeating the same mistakes because we didn't adapt the wisdom to change and transfer, okay? So I wanna make sure you're not a dog going back to your vomit. Let's use wisdom, let's learn, and let's become a true, successful brand ambassador. Everybody with me? All right, so let's get going. So the first thing I wanna share with you is what are the characteristics of a successful brand ambassador? And let me tell you, there are a billion different definitions out there. So I really started looking at some of the top brands and what they're looking for. And I found that there was some common ground between certain characteristics, and that's what I'm gonna share with you today. So instead of going through the 1,000 that I read, I'm going to share with you the core 5 that I saw that were really powerful, that almost all the top companies really push for in their organization. The first one is that when they're looking to bring somebody in, they're looking for the characteristic of somebody that represents the brand's personality. So here's basically what I've summed up. And ambassadors should be able to reflect the attitude and personality of the brand. This is vitally important when dealing with potential customers, vendors, etc., because through the ambassador, they, the customers or the vendors or anyone else, will understand the brand's purpose and standards. So the reason why this is a powerful characteristic and the reason why this is so important, to the point that some of these organizations literally spend hundreds of thousands of dollars in vetting their staff to make sure that these people fit the mold, is because they understand that a brand ambassador, literally their personality is what the customer sees as the purpose and the standard. So that's the reason why this characteristic is so important. So in a minute, I'll ask some key questions that I think is how we can internalize these. But I want you to understand that for a successful company to have a real solid brand that lasts, the people within the organization have to represent the brand's personality as individuals. And that's really important for us to aspire to. And that challenges me at the core, because it starts with me. The next thing is passion. Passion, let's face it, passion truly is infectious. And the reality is it cannot be manufactured. In fact, I've seen people try to manufacture it, but it comes across phony. It comes across like a salesman trying to manipulate you because they're really trying to draw from the wrong place, right? I was just actually getting my car serviced, and I'm not going to say from where because we're recording. And I went to the dealership, and they're of course trying to pitch me on getting my new car. And so I'm having a conversation with them, and I'm asking them some key questions, and I can tell the guy's trying, but he may as well have been wearing a face mask, you know, because you can't even tell in his face that he's even excited at all about this. And he's like, I'll be right back. Let me check. Okay, well, here's your options. And I finally decided, you know, like, I like this brand, I like this company, but I don't like you. I don't like the way that you represent it. So I'm probably going to go somewhere else. And today, in fact, I sent them a response because they sent me an email asking why I didn't pull the trigger on their options. And I actually shared this with them. And I said, look, I'm going to probably end up going with another brand because I don't feel like you guys match the name of what the brand is. And so it was really important. And part of that too had to do with the fact that he just wasn't even passionate about what he was doing. So how can I believe in him? I'm supposed to lean on him to inspire me to want to get a ride, and I can't. So again, passion is infectious and cannot be manufactured. Otherwise, trust me when I say it looks fake. When you believe in a company's mission and the products, that you express your passion with excellence, the customer will pick it up. And really what ends up happening is they're going to be more likely to try it because they see your passion. They see that you're excited about what the company represents and the products that you offer. And that's really the key piece. And so that's something that I can't make you fake. So you really have to understand, are you first and foremost a believer of the mission of the company? Because that's the first thing. You have to believe in the company's mission. Then the next thing you need to ask yourself is, are the products that we offer valuable to the people around us? And if they are, that's where you start drawing your passion. And another little hint that I found was interesting is, and I didn't want to build on it too much because one of the bullets is when you start working with a team, and you start building a relationship with the team, your passion ignites when you're helping one another, right? And so that's another key component. But if you don't have passion, people sense it, and then people don't want to be around it. And we used to have somebody in the office not too long ago that we would be like, how are you doing? And it was so monotone that everyone would be like, are you okay? Right? Like that's a complete opposite. You don't want to suck out the life of the room. You want to be a part of contributing to the energy and the positivity in the room. Okay. And so again, passion is critical. Another characteristic, that is critical here for any organization that really aspires to have a solid brand is professionalism. Professionalism is extremely important. Ambassadors are representatives of the brand itself. So needless to say, representation should be of the highest quality if you wish to protect and grow the company brand. And I think that goes without saying. Pretty much in any other organization, if you are not professional, do you think you're going to last a very long time? No. In fact, especially in today's environment, the least professional people get canned because they know that there's a massive demand from other people that normally wouldn't even be available today that are now looking for those opportunities. And so it's imperative that if we want to be a true brand ambassador, that we begin to ask ourselves, how is my level of professionalism? What am I contributing to the organization? Am I truly a brand, the personality that represents a brand? Am I truly passionate about what we do? And then lastly, am I being a professional about what I do in an organization? I think that is critical for us to make sure that we are true brand ambassadors, that we represent the company well. And as I just talked in that other story about passion, imagine if, again, you go into an organization, you go to their office and the place is disgusting, it's dirty. What is your perception of that organization the moment you walk in? Nobody had to say anything. In fact, somebody could have greeted you with a smile on their face, and you're looking at the walls and you're looking at the floor, see a cockroach move down there. And let me tell you, that immediately kills your credibility. Would you agree? In the same way with us, the way that our attitude reflects the organization, it's just as important as the actual building itself when somebody walks into the organization. So when people walk in, question is, do they see that you're a professional? Or do you think immediately, oh, wow, you could tell where they cut their budget by bringing this lower person in here. So again, we never want to be that person that represents the negative aspects. So let us all come up in our level of professionalism, because at the end of the day, we are the brand. We represent the brand of HIS. Number 4, powerful communicator. Now, this is really important. A lot of people think that the powerful communication, it's their keynote speaker, that they have to come bring down thunder when they speak and everything else. But in all the research that I did, this was on their top 2 or 3. And I took my time because I recognize that there's a level of this, of how it works. But a powerful communicator. So check this out. Every piece of communication, whether it's a phone call, an email, a text message, or even an in-person meeting, expressed by the ambassador directly represents the company's brand. Powerful communicators ensure that every word that comes from them builds the brand up. Now, I cannot emphasize this enough, because every single organization, when I say of all the people, they'll have different spins on what their standards are. The largest organizations all have some level of powerful communication skills. It is a requirement. It is a standard, and they don't go below the standard. Some of them even went as far as creating a training program within their organization to show people how to communicate with anyone, whether it's email, text, phone calls, or in person. So think about how important that is, that they actually have the bigger companies with bigger resources invest money in teaching you how to send an email. Think about that for just a minute. That sounds ridiculous, but what it also shows is their commitment to protecting their brand. Now, we may not be a massive company that has hundreds of employees that we could actually invest in having somebody that's their entire job is to filter emails and text messages and teach you how to send emails and how to communicate effectively. But what we can do is use common sense. And so what I want to challenge each and every one of you to do is to consider, when you engage in communication with an employee, with a vendor, with attorneys, with staff, with a customer, do your communications build a brand up, or do they burn a bridge for future clients and business relationships? And I really want you to consider that, because in the end, it doesn't matter how sharp you are. If you're cutting throats on the other side, it's going to impact the organization, period. And then at what point, when you take a look at a period of time that grows, at what point are you killing more than you're helping? And that's really the law of diminishing returns, right? And so we have to make sure that we understand we don't have a budget to have somebody to sit here and read all your emails and say, no, from now on, here's how you address someone. But I think everybody here would understand that as a team, it is imperative for us to communicate effectively and professionally. And what I would challenge you to do this is before you send an email, if you don't know what you're saying, pause, go to a team member, ask them, read my email. Am I communicating this effectively? Am I even saying this correctly? Because I don't know. I would rather you do that and take that extra 5 minutes with somebody else to filter through your email to say, actually, you were about to give wrong information. So here's what you should be saying so that you can make sure that when that email goes out, the customer or whoever the person is has a proper response from the organization. So that's one way that we can help each other without having to have a full-time employee sifting through your emails. Another thing too that I would say is, and this is a really good, important thing, and in a minute I'm going to talk about a story that happened with my wife, but one of the things that I would encourage you to do is before you send an email, ask yourself, if someone sent this to me, would I want to work with them? And I think that's a really powerful moment to pause and say, wait a minute, wow, I didn't realize, but if I read this email and somebody sent it to me, we would have some problems. If that's the case, then stop. Take a walk, because chances are you're frustrated. Or another way might be when you drafted the email, you weren't even thinking about it. You just typed it up real quick because you're in a rush. But then you need to stop and filter back and say, hey, how could somebody read this? Would this offend them? Or would this build them up? Or would this answer their question? And so again, I'm not sitting here to be the email police or text message police or even a phone call police, but pause for a minute and think about it. Now, I'm going to give you this example because I think this is how important this piece is. When I would say about 6 months before I got married, my wife and I went to a counselor, and we wanted to just learn about this whole marriage thing before we actually tried it out. Because we knew once you're in, you're in. There's no getting out. And so we went with this gentleman. I requested several recommendations, and they said, this guy is amazing. You want to go to him. He's going to be awkward. You're going to have some weird conversations. But in the end, these are conversations that you need to have, and they'll empower you, and you'll be a better husband, and you'll be a better wife. And so we decided, okay, man, that's a huge, huge explanation to us, right, of what this is, and let's go try it out. So I want to say it was like the third or fourth session. The first few sessions were more geared towards asking questions about our personalities and finding out the things that I didn't even realize that he was trying to discern that would ultimately hurt my wife, just out of habits, the way I communicate, everything else. And vice versa, the questions were to her to find out, what is she going to do one day that's going to frustrate Rick? It was really interesting. But the first 3 sessions, I was frustrated. I feel like this is a get to know you session here. And it's weird. It's a waste of my time. Well, it was in the next session that he actually came back and he started pointing things out. He's like, at some point, Rick, you do this a lot. And when you do this a lot, chances are you're going to rub her the wrong way. So how are you guys going to address that level of communication? And then he went and gave me another example about her. And I'm like, actually, that's a really good point. I can see her offending me, but I can't see me offending her. And I'm like, oh yeah, well, you better take notes, lady, because that's right. That's exactly what's going to happen, right? And then he went a little further to demonstrate this. And I'll never forget this. And he said, Rick, what is your favorite meal? And I'm like, I don't know. I don't even have a favorite meal. I like a lot of food. He goes, well, tell me, what is one of the fanciest restaurants you've been on? And I'm like, well, that's easy. At least in Tampa, one of the fanciest restaurants that I've been in is Burnt Steakhouse. And he's like, tell me about this Burnt Steakhouse. And of course, he should know where it is. It's in Tampa. It's amazing, right? All the celebrities and most presidents have eaten there. It's like that incredible. He goes, what did you order? In fact, I took you, Javier, years ago. Remember that? Yeah, we got the special, which was not on special. Let's say the price was $400, but yeah, I thought special meant discount. It was specially priced. But anyway, so I remember that moment. In fact, I was thinking about that meal, and I said, well, man, I got this Delmonico steak. It was medium rare. They had the carrots and they had the mashed potatoes. It was like perfect, like everything they put into the, and I was actually getting hungry as I'm describing. He's like, think about the place you're in and what did your server give you? What kind of wine did you have? And I mean, so for 5 minutes, I'm like I'm starving now thinking about this steak, right? So he's like, hey, let's get some grub. And then he says, now stop for just a minute. Just pretend that your wife is going to serve you this incredible meal for your anniversary. And so I'm like, beautiful, great. Right? He goes, now just imagine that just before she's going to go and present it to you and lift up the little piece like they do and place your meal in front of you, will you notice when she lifts the piece up that underneath your plate, she's got a garbage lid, and she's using a garbage lid as the actual tray that holds your meal and places it in front of you. And he goes, now let me ask you a question. Does that excite you? Do you want to eat that meal? And quite frankly, I was like, oh, that's disgusting. Like, who would use a nasty, right, this horrible garbage lid that's got disgusting stuff all over it to actually place my plate? I was like, no, that would be disgusting. And he goes, that's how important your communication is with your wife. And he goes, so you see, it doesn't matter if you're right. If everything that you brought had all the pieces, if you present it incorrectly, it is the equivalent of actually serving somebody their favorite meal with a garbage lid. And he's like, so if you want to get anything out of our discussions, marriage is all about communication. And he says, if you present it correctly, you will be able to enjoy this incredible Burn Steakhouse experience. But if you don't, even if you think you prepared the meal correctly and it has all the ingredients, if you serve it incorrectly, it will actually cause tension between your relationship. And so I want you guys to visualize this. When you communicate on behalf of HIS, because you are truly an ambassador of the company, are you serving people Delmonico steak from Burnt Steakhouse? Or are you offending them because you brought an actual disgusting lid of a trash can with the food that you delivered? And that is really as visual as I can get it to you. But let me tell you, there's times when I go to communicate with my wife and I still remember, and I'm like, we're starting to fight. I'm right, she's wrong. Stop. I'm holding the garbage lid. Get it, right? So again, sometimes it's just a matter of having a trigger that reminds us, hey, it doesn't even mean that I'm trying to hurt somebody, but how I'm presenting it could hurt somebody. And so that's the key to make sure that we're on the same page, okay? So can I have your commitment to do that? Perfect. All right, number 5, team player, which goes back to the piece that I talked about earlier. All right, so an ambassador protects the team because he or she understands that the company brand is built up of other team members committed to each other in the vision. So remember, it is not me, it is we. And so as a team, guys, I want to challenge you to think about the brand. This brand can help you grow. It can build long-term wealth for you. Even now, we're going to be able to issue stocks to our team, which I am super excited about. But at the end of the day, this is not a solo ranger company. It never has been and never will be. So let's yoke together and push forward this vision to take it to that next level, because by ourselves, we can't do it. And understand that when you are helping your team, you are being the perfect depiction of the brand ambassador that you were called to be here. And that's really important. So with that said, I'm almost done. Now I'm going to ask you some critical questions. And I really believe that if you write these down and assess yourself now. So I'm going to ask you guys to join me on this. This is a personal note. You don't have to share it with your team. But these are key questions that I think will pause us and make us think about our actions and how we're dealing with things. And it will help us to be more productive. Okay, so this is good to apply every now and then. All right, so the first one is, does your attitude reflect the attitude and personality of the company? So the question is, on a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate yourself currently right now? Does your attitude reflect the attitude of the personality of the company on a scale of 1 to 10? Now, if you're not at least at a 7, then you can ask the following question. How can you improve? It's a real simple thing, but you'll be amazed that it's not until we reflect and until we start thinking about solutions that we actually change. And so, again, I'll ask all of you virtually, does your attitude reflect the attitude and personality of the company? Scale of 1 to 10, how can you improve? The second question is, how much do you care about the company and what HIS offers? Again, this goes back to your belief in what you do, or is it just a job? So here's the question on a scale of 1 to 10, how much do you care about the company and what the company has to offer? If you're at least under 7, there's room for improvement. So ask yourself, how can you improve? But if you're under 5, I want to ask you another key question, because if you don't really care, why are you here? You're better off finding another place that you're passionate about, that you're excited about, that you believe in, because if not, after a while, you're going to get burned out anyway. So on a scale of 1 to 10, how much do you care about the company and what it offers? If it's under 5, then I would even challenge you to think even further, why am I here? Do I really care? Or do I need to just sit down and get clarity? And maybe it's just that I'm burnt out, or maybe I just don't understand my role, or maybe it's, I don't understand my role or what I'm supposed to be doing, period. So sometimes you need clarity to be able to understand. And so if that's the case, please ask us. But again, how do you care about the company and what HIS offers? Question number 3, does your professionalism represent the standard of the company? So again, on a scale of 1 to 10, does your professionalism represent the standard of the company? If you're under 7, how can you improve? How can you get better? And this should be a challenge for all of us. How do we get better? Question number 4, are your communications building the company up or breaking them down? So on a scale of 1 to 10, are you building the company up with all your communications, or is there room for improvement? And if so, how can you improve? Begin to ask yourself, how can you improve? You'll be amazed at how many answers you can come up with, how many solutions you create the moment you start asking the right questions. And lastly, are you investing in building the team up or isolating yourself from the team? So on a scale of 1 to 10, are you building your team up? And if not, once again, how can you improve? Guys, these 5 simple questions are geared specifically to make you aware of whether or not you are hitting the standard of the organization. And so what I want to challenge you guys to do is this, and I think this is really critical and important for all of us within virtually that are virtual here or those that are present. It is important, if we're going to go to the next level together, that we all rise up to the next level. And a lot of times it's hard to know where we're going to go and how much we're going to grow if we don't first assess ourselves. And so that's why these 5 questions are so powerful. So I want to challenge you, save those questions, and every now and then, if you feel that you're kind of off, read those out loud. And chances are one of these areas you're dropping the ball on, and you need to focus on it and start asking yourself, how can I improve upon it? I'm just telling you from experience, this is what will help you to go to the next level, because whether you like it or not, you are a brand ambassador of the company. Here's a quote that I love, and if with your permission, I'm going to wrap it up with this, because I really believe all of this is tied to one key component to be a good, great brand ambassador, and that's your attitude. And so this quote, I'll start with this portion, but I'm actually going to read the whole quote for you guys. It says, the longer I live, the more I realize the impact of attitude on life. None of these things change until we first change our attitude. That's just the way it is. And so it's imperative for us to change our attitude about the way we feel about being a brand ambassador, change our attitude to grow and go to the next level. So let me read you the whole quote. The longer I live, the more I realize the impact of attitude on life. Attitude, to me, is more important than facts. It is more important than the past, the education, the money, the circumstances, than failure, than success, than what other people think or say or do. It is more important than appearance, giftedness, or skill. It will make or break a company, a church, a home. The remarkable thing is we have a choice every day regarding the attitude we will embrace for the day. We cannot change our past. We cannot change the fact that people will act in a certain way. We cannot change the inevitable. The only thing we can do is play on the one string we have. That is our attitude. I am convinced that life is 10% what happens to me and 90% of how I react to it. And so it is with you. We are in charge of our attitudes. Guys, I read this quote to my kids almost every single day. It's literally in our little office where the kids go and they study. You will be amazed at how much my children can achieve when they change their attitude. But when they don't change their attitude, oh my gosh, it'll take literally 4 hours to finish one sentence because their attitude is holding them back. So if you failed in any one of these pieces, what I want to challenge you is to ask yourself, what is your attitude like? Are you allowing your emotions to hold you back from reaching excellence? And if that is the case, I am telling you, look in my eyes. I'm telling all of you, if we don't change our attitudes, it's not that I don't like you, is that I can't keep you here killing the rest of the team. Everybody here is responsible for a positive attitude so that we can grow this thing together. And I'm expecting all of you, within the sound of my voice, of course, to be a part of this endeavor, but it all comes down to our attitude, whether we embrace the change and the growth or whether we decide that we don't want to embrace the change. And so I hope all of you will join us on this mission to the next level. But guys, if you want to be a brand ambassador, let's work on the attitude, because that's what ultimately has the impact on everything else that we've covered today. So with that said, I'm wrapping it up. Any comments or any questions? Feel free to share.